Welcome to Gospel Tangents, the best source for Mormon history, science, and theology. I'm Rick Bennett. We're continuing our walk through Brent Ashworth's bookstore/museum. It's going to be great to go through some of the other artifacts, including the Spirit of St. Louis and some movie posters like Dirty Harry and other things like that. So you won't want to miss our conversation. Check it out.
This little piece of the Spirit of St. Louis right there, and if you pull that up, you can see a letter he wrote Lindbergh when he brought the plane to Utah, 1927. He wrote that from Salt Lake, a letter over there, framed with it. And a lot of the kids like the Stan Lee signed Spider-Man piece there. So I leave that for the kids. We do a lot of youth, firesides there. Had some young women in last week.
Well, you just did one this week with Elvis, right? In the Hutchins Museum.
Elvis went over there. Yeah, it was fun. And we did, you came to Jackie Kennedy, didn't you?
Right.
Yeah, last month. We're doing Mary Todd Lincoln next month.
Oh, okay.
So I like to bring, I pick people I want to talk about, and it's kind of fun.
Yeah.
Bring artifacts. This is from the Beehive House. It's a beehive, but all it really is a string holder.
Oh, that's funny.
And this I found in our stuff. Nice thing about having so many items and can't remember anything is discovery, you know?
Yeah.
And I discovered this a few years ago and framed it out. It's a Louisville Slugger bat ad, and it's got Ted Williams. He's got to be one of your heroes with the Red Sox.
Oh, for sure.
Signed the bat, and Joe DiMaggio, one of mine. Of course, I like Ted too a lot.
Yeah.
And Joe DiMaggio on to the right, and then it's got Johnny Mize and a few others on there. But that was kind of fun to find.
Yeah.
This is a little piece of Amelia Earhart's plane that she flew the Atlantic solo, the first time a woman flew it solo in 1932. She'd gone across it before with a male pilot in 28, but she became the first woman to solo flight it like Lindbergh 5 years later in 1932. And these were put out by the Smithsonian to raise funds for the restoration of the plane. So it was red like that, and they had to redo the skin of the plane there in the Vega. Of course, the plane she went down with, we don't have.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Don't know where it is.
And I have Glenn calls me once in a while. He offered me $10 million for my national stuff. I don't know if I told you.
Oh no.
Oh yeah. And my son that passed away a couple of years ago was helping me with that, Adam. And Adam came in, Glenn came in with his wife, Tanya, and with David Barton. And, they came here, they came to our home. And so it was fun. He'd been in my store upstairs a few years before. But at any rate, he calls me every now and again. He offered me $10 million for the national stuff. He sent me a $100,000 check. And he said, go ahead and spend it. Well, I had no contract with him. Being an attorney, I wasn't going to spend anything. So I handed the check to my wife.
Especially after dealing with Mark Hoffman, right?
Yeah. Plus that. I asked my sweet wife, Charlene, to hang on to it. We were telling this story recently, and I said, well, Glenn's financial situation changed, and he wasn't able to. He actually had, I think, somebody that ripped him off for millions at one time a few years ago. So I heard. Well, whether that happened or something else, he wasn't able to fulfill the agreement, which was just a verbal agreement, a couple exchange of emails. And I was telling somebody this the other day, and I said, we gave the check back. My wife says, no, we didn't.
Oh.
I says, well, you got a worthless souvenir. So she kept the check. But Glenn will call me up every now and again and ask, about certain items. Well, I still admit his situation's improved a lot the last few years.
Okay.
And he'll call me up. He called me up a year or so ago, and he says, hey, Ashworth, how much will you sell me Butch Cassidy's 38 Revolver, which is in the top shelf over here? We've had Bill Batten some.
Oh, you've got the death mask. Are these real death masks, or are they just replicas?
What's that?
Are these death masks real, or are they replicas?
They are, but they're older ones. They're not. They're not. The originals are at the church. They came from.
They're just replicas, but they're all replicas.
They're all replicas. But the original set is at the church. So everything else is made from those. I got a couple of sets, but that's the oldest set I've got. And but I did a book on Butch Cassidy with Larry Pointer up in Montana years ago. And he was excited to see that. That came from Butch's one of his girlfriend's daughters is where he got it from. We've had Bill Benton and some other family members. Bill told me, he says, well, that's got a better history than any other gun, he says, is attributed to him. Because Cassidy didn't really use guns much. Oh. And he left he didn't kill anybody that we know of. You can't say that about Sundance or Kid Courier or any of the rest of them. But we don't know that Butch ever shot anybody. He came from an LDS background. Right. I don't think he killed anybody. Oh. Didn't mind stealing from him, but he didn't kill anybody. Anyway, the gun came from Josie Bassett. Was one of his girlfriend's daughters. Is where we got it. Mm-hmm. And I have Butch's last 2 known letters in our collection, and one of them's in my book. The show and tell book. Yeah, my show and tell. Why don't you show them, everybody? You can show and tell your show and tell book. Yeah, well, this is a book that Tracy Felstead wrote for me. I helped her with it and helped her write it, and so it's a biography of my life and collecting, and it's got a lot of things in here that that we like. The intro to it was written by Glenn Beck, and here's Glenn and me with one of the D-Day flags. Hit the beaches on D-Day. Mm-hmm. And Glenn wrote the 2-page introduction, which is very nice. And then we've got pictured in here some of the items that we treasure. This is the other Bradford Bible that was brought to America on the Mayflower. And it's signed by Wade Bradford down here. And it was printed in Leyden, Holland, as you can see. That's where they left from. Mm-hmm. And then we have the Joseph Smith and Emma Smith family Bible. It's in our collection. And it's fascinating because the prophet's written out the names of his family here, and Emma's written out the names of hers. And then Emma continues to write their children's names here. I read somewhere where one of the magazines from Meridian or somebody said that she never named the twins she lost, but she did. They're right there. What were their names? Thaddeus and Louisa. Oh. And that was after they'd lost, their first son, it was named after his brother, Alvin. The thing that was interesting, underneath here, the Murdough twins, she put a little line with the 2 Murdough twins that she raised, because Murdaugh's mother died and John R. Murdough gave him. Right. In Utah, John R. Murdough was sent to Beaver and was the stake president down there. Okay. And my great-great-grandfather on that side was Marcus Lafayette Shepard, was his first counselor. So they're buried in the Beaver Cemetery a few feet apart. An interesting thing about this was that we didn't know about a 7th son. I think she's named him Thomas, T-H-O, 7th son. He only lived one day in Nauvoo. And we didn't know about him before the Bible was discovered. Oh, really? Yeah. So it's good you have a family record like this. Yeah. Because that was one of their children we didn't know about. But at any rate, the book just kind of gives a history of my life and some other things. And it's been fun over the years. This is the 2nd edition. I think I gave you one of the first. But we had another son that passed away, so I did a little tribute for Adam here. Sam passed away when he was 7. Yeah. But anyway, so that's a few things here. And then let's see, Elvis I used for the last Thursday night. Yeah. That's signed by Elvis up on the upper right-hand side there, right above where his suit is. Oh, right there. Yeah. That's a nudie suit. That was made by Nudie Company in Hollywood for him. And that was his first flashy outfit. And then he started getting more flashy. The Beatles are down here. You can see that's signed by all 4 of them down here in the first record here in the United States that came out. And the bench they're sitting on is from the Salt Lake Temple, or Tabernacle, I'm sorry. Salt Lake Tabernacle is one of those that got out before President Hinckley decided not to get rid of them. So they hung on to them. I had a wonderful experience with President Hinckley during those years. He absolutely loved church history.
Yeah.
I don't know of anyone else. Every time I go in his office, I've told you this, but he always asks me,
Yeah, but
what have you learned this week?
Yeah.
The lost manuscript. And I was kind of embarrassed because I didn't know anything. And about the fifth meeting, he asked me, I says, President, you've asked me that every time I'm in here, and I don't have a good answer for you. I'm just wondering, as a collector, you've got my interest up. Do they still exist? And without even hesitating, he'd say, oh, they'll be provided to us at the proper time. But our members don't know what's in the Book of Mormon yet. Now, what'd you bring in to show me today? Just don't waste my time.
That's funny.
That's fun. And the chair in front of you here is Brigham's favorite. This was a rocking chair was made by Chauncey Kirtland, who was a Utah War veteran. He made this in 1869. We've done nothing to it. It hasn't been recovered. The springs are the same. And it's still, we're told by my great aunt when she brought it to our fourth grade class when I was a kid, and we all got to sit on it because she just lived across the street on University Avenue. She had it brought over. And we all got to sit in it as kids that this was her grandfather, Brigham Young's favorite chair. And I don't question that. It was used down in his home in St. George. And my wife and I own a little building on that block that we still have. It's called the Gardeners Club Hall. It's the oldest public building in St. George, 1867.
Mm-hmm.
And kind of fun. Anyway, there's a lot more stuff here, but I don't know how long your camera's going to go. you want to do this, but this, of course, I got this from one of the soldiers that served over in Iraq. And my dad-in-law walked in one day to my old store with this thing. He'd written on Butch Cassidy's childhood home door threshold. It was from Circleville. I said, Mike, how did you get that? He said, it's just laying there. I took it. That's one way to collect. I wouldn't question that D-Day vet. So he was able to get some good stuff. There's a lot of signed things in here. This is by Gertha, the guy that came up with built the Panama Canal. And a good friend of mine, Ray Andrus, gave me this just a month ago. His father, Roman Andrus, was a great artist and did this Lincoln picture. And he gave that to me, and I thought that was wonderful. Love Lincoln. I found Porter Rockwell. It's a signed print in storage and brought it in. This is, I buried this one, but this is signed by Hitler here.
It's actually signed?
Yeah, right there.
Wow.
I've got a friend that wants to buy that. And I don't know if he will or not. See what happens. This is from General Garfield's run for president. This campaign poster.
Okay.
He's our second assassinated president. This I'm going to give my daughter.
We don't talk about Garfield too much.
No, we should. This is one of the exclusion notices. The Japanese were hauled into the camps. We had Topaz here. I've got some stuff from Topaz. The state of Utah is thinking of going after. And this is from the old Kenyon Hotel in Salt Lake. It's an ad. No longer exists, but must have been something in its day.
They got trolley cars in there.
Yeah, they did in Salt Lake.
And wagons.
Yep, and wagons. And that's War and Peace. There's the Elvis stamp. Should have taken those. I didn't take them.
Yeah.
That's the Elvis stamp. My dad was a CB. This is World War II.
Oh, that's how you spell it.
Yeah.
So it's the letter CB for Construction Battalion, but they spelled it SEABEEF.
See the B with a guy with a machine gun in his hand. This was the CBs.
That's funny.
World War II. This is the only Courier Knives they ever did of Salt Lake. They did this in the 1870s. And it's kind of like you can imagine what would have happened back in New York. These prints were cheap, colored prints. Well, why don't we do one at Salt Lake? It's so far away, nobody's going to go there. We'll just put the city with a lake around with some tall mountains, and we'll call it Salt Lake.
Yeah, the Great Salt Lake's not that close.
So there's Great Salt Lake, Utah.
That's funny.
Yeah, it's become quite a collector's piece nowadays. That's Chanel Walker's brother's bank. That's kind of neat. This that's on glass.
Oh, really?
Yeah, it's from 2 Hours a Day, Teddy Roosevelt. That's a Rough Rider hat there. In the time of United States Scout on it. That's Rough Rider. You're not old enough to remember the Flying Fickle Finger of Fate Award, but this was on TV. We enjoyed that. I got the award too. This from the Hotel Utah,
which is now the Joseph Smith Building.
Now the Joseph Smith Building, and a little map of Utah, a little different dimensions with Nevada.
Oh yeah,
1860s, wow. And there's another Ted Williams signed.
Nice.
Life. Joe DiMaggio signed Life. And a Jackie Robinson.
Oh, that's cool.
Signed Life. And this is Teddy Roosevelt appointing a postmaster for Spanish Fork, Utah. Signed by the president, Teddy Roosevelt. I used to have a Boy Scout museum in town, and I had this up on the wall. This is signed by Baden Powell, founded the Boy Scouts. I wish we still had the Boy Scouts.
Yeah.
We still do, but only about 20% of the LDS kids are still signed up in it. This is a letter from Charlie Russell here, trying to get up the artist, and this is kind of fun. This is my old musical instrument. It's a violin. This was from Duchesne area, and oh, thank you.
Yeah.
And if you couldn't afford a violin, you just made one.
You made that?
No, it was made by Pioneer.
Oh, wow.
Duchesne. I don't know how it sounded. It's from the 1800s, but
wow,
isn't that kind of unique?
Wow, different.
Yeah. So if you couldn't afford to get one, you just made one. That's a pipe from the church's oldest. Down at
is that a Nauvoo Legion sword or two?
No, they're American. They're actually Civil War dress swords or whatever. Yeah, they're U.S. ones. I do have
the Mormon Creed. Mind your business. Saints will observe this, although others ought to.
And that's from the Utah when they launched it in 1911. And when Utah became a state, that's an old flower bag that was embroidered with Utah, 1896.
Oh, and there's Butch Cassidy right there.
That's his prison photo.
Oh, that's his prison photo.
Yeah, it's the only one we actually have as a good. We got some others, but they're not authenticated, I guess, as such. Let's hit a few later ones. And that's Butch's home down in Circleville.
Yeah, I was just there. In fact,
that was leaning this direction up till a few years ago, and the governor authorized a payment of about $250,000 to straighten it up because we get over 1 million visitors that stop by this every year.
Yeah, I stopped by last year. In fact, I was just working on a video. It'll probably be out before we do this. So
still private property.
Oh, it is?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
I've got a big collection on Butch. Like I said, I had a book on him years ago. And these are the glass cups, the trays.
Oh, wow.
Joseph F. Smith tried to get us to use individual cups, but he couldn't do it until the Spanish flu hit and everybody started dying. So when Heber J. came in as president of church, he's been on the health committee, state board, and he switched us all to individual cups.
Okay.
But I've got one of the old Deacon's pitchers. It's a silver pitcher. And I've only had one of the original cups, the big cup,
Mm-hmm.
And it's got teeth marks all around you can see my life expectancy was about 47. I read one young girl wrote about going to state conference because they used to pass the sacrament at state conference. And she was up at Idaho at the old tabernacle. What's the famous place? Famous tabernacle up there. Anyway, she was going to church and she was late. she got to the meeting, she had to sit up in the balcony. One of the things about the sacrament, if you're concerned about germs, is you wanted to be on the front row when they passed that thing. And she was on the last row. She was up at top, and the guy next to her had a red beard. And she was trying to decide whether it's a test of faith to take the sacrament or not. It was an interesting, the way she wrote about it was really pretty clever.
That's funny.
It was an old one. And then these are all things from later period. This is Don Larson and Yogi Baris celebrating the only World Series up to this point, 1956, that was scoreless.
Oh.
And
well, no, that was his perfect game, wasn't it?
The perfect game.
Yeah.
And we did it again about 4 years ago, but it took 4 pitchers to do it. These two did it themselves.
Yeah.
Back then. And he says, when it was through, I was so happy. I felt like crying. I wanted to win this one for Casey after what I did in Brooklyn. He could have forgotten about me. Who would blame him? But he gave me another chance, and I'm grateful. That's Don Larson.
Yeah.
It's the Chinese that invented printing, but it's not the same kind of printing as we have today. It's block printing. That's all hand cut.
Oh, wow.
And what if you made a mistake? It's kind of hard to change anything. This guy did it both sides.
Wow.
That's a lot of work. So that's block printing. But you couldn't change anything. So really Gutenberg invented printing as we know it because he used movable metal types that could be changed. That's all.
So you could only print one thing and you were done, huh?
Yeah, on those, you know. This is me and my wife. We've been married for 55 years now. So 9 kids and 19 grandkids. These are some pieces from the Provo Tabernacle when it burned down.
Oh, yeah. Now the Provo City Temple.
Yeah. That's what the glass looked like.
Oh.
And this, they reproduced the ceiling tile. That's what it was like. This is Mickey Mouse, 1928, Steamboat Willie. Anyway, that's one of the early drawings of Mickey Mouse there. And it's either done by Uber, Utink, or whatever his name was, or Walt Disney, one or the other.
Mm-hmm.
We even got the gold plates in there. How about that?
Oh, here's the gold plates.
Yeah. And we know there's a sealed portion, so we finally found a use for the sealed portion. So if you want a candy on the gold plates, grab them. This guy, Jerry Siegel, created Superman, and years later he signed these covers of later magazines, Superman comics. This is George M. Modinger, a early Utah artist. I just got that recently. But that's the last soldier, Union soldier. It's called.
Yeah, it's hard to see.
Yeah.
He
signed it over here with a GMO. That was his signature, George M. Modinger. He's really kind of our original pioneer. Him and Wagner were the two real pioneer artists. A lot of people like this painting here. They like the technique. The only problem is that that's not a technique. This was a survivor of the fire at the governor's mansion. So it's all blisters.
A little bubbling, yeah.
And the Springville Gallery was giving it, and they didn't want it, so I got it from them. It's kind of historic. And then Don Blanding was a famous Hawaiian artist and author, and he did this painting underneath the Feast of the Hindenburg, which is here. He did that painting of the fish and stuff. And what do you say? There's a lot of stuff buried in here too. There's a letter of George Romney written to the governor of California. Yeah, he's sending him some Michigan aspirin. And Ronald Reagan writes him back and says, "Dear George, thanks to you, I'm now perfectly equipped for the rest of the session." He says, aspirin for pain and jelly beans for energy. Anyway, funny. Jimmy Stewart, we just watched this last night. They had Harvey on TCM last night. He's the only one that can see Harvey the Rabbit, so he would draw out Harvey for people as part of his signature.
That's funny.
I had Shirley Jones, the actress, come to one of my stores, the first one.
Oh,
And she's still alive, and she's just hit 90.
wow.
So she came in with Marty Engles, her husband at the time. He's since passed on, but at any rate, I couldn't believe I didn't recognize them. They were all dressed. It was 98 degrees. It was August 5th or something.
Mm-hmm.
And my air conditioning gone out in the store on Center Street. So I was across the street at Kiwanis, and I left a little early to, get over there with the repair guy. But he didn't come for another hour, which was nice because he didn't interfere with us.
Oh.
And as soon as this guy dressed in a moon suit out front, and I thought, he's either from the moon, India, or Hollywood. And it turned out he looked like somebody I'd seen. He'd been on the Hollywood Square, so I guess that's where I'd seen him.
Oh, that's funny.
But he had a lady with him, but she had a parka on, big dark glasses. I don't know who she was. And he said, I'd like to come in. I had these big glass windows in front of the store, and then I had a lot of fun changing things and, and all that. And he said, yeah, I've enjoyed looking here. I'd like to come in. So I invited him in, and he told me that he was from Hollywood, and that they just got through visiting with their good friend Bobby Redford, and they were just heading Bobby, and they're heading back to town. Okay. Anyway, I didn't know who he was until he told me, but he looked familiar. But I didn't know who she was at all. But they came in the store, and I had some big displays on Hollywood then. I had some big, and I had one of James Dean's jackets from Rebel Without a Cause. I had a dress of Marilyn's from what is it?
Something like a
The Millionaire show.
Oh,
yeah. And I had Barbara Streisand's leopard hat from Funny Girl, and I had different things from different people there in this one case. And at any rate, he told me, he says, well, I came here to raise $7 million to do a documentary. He asked me a question. He said, do you know who the great financier of the revolution was? And you'd mostly say Robert Morris, because that's who raised the money for the war. And at any rate, I gave him the name of the Jewish guy, Haim Solomon. And he says, you're the first guy I've asked that to that got that name right. So he decided to stick around a little longer, And he says, I've raised $3.5 million to do this, because Haim Solomon's never gotten his due, for raising money, won a revolution. They later put a stamp out on him.
Oh.
But at this point, I never heard of him, except he asked me how come I knew that name. And I said, well, I had a good Jewish friend that had a store like mine down in La Costa years ago. And the most expensive thing in his store was a guy I never heard of, Haim Solomon. And he wanted $100,000 for it. This is back in the 70s. And Washington's and everything were a lot cheaper then. And I said, well, who's he? And he said, well, he's the guy that saved the country. He came, to Washington and saved him. Anyway, he's one of the ones that did it. And so I got the question right, and Marty Engles was impressed. He said, by the way, that's my wife, Shirley Jones. Shirley Jones, I about collapsed,
but
There's a signed picture.
Oh, there we go, from the Partridge family.
Mm-hmm. The Partridge family. And anyway, she was in Oklahoma. She was in Carousel. She was in those early ones. She got her Oscar for, what was it? Not The Music Man. She was in that too. Big actress in that. But she got it with playing opposite Burt Lancaster. And any rate, she got an Oscar for that. I about collapsed on the floor when he told me who she was. Okay.
Yeah, I bet.
Yeah. And she was still a lovely looking lady. Her hair was white and she had these big glasses and stuff. She took the park off. And any rate, they're getting ready to leave. And I said, well, I talked to her after that. I said, well, Miss Jones, I've got a Hollywood room back here. And if you want to see it, I'd be happy. I says, there's a dress of Lucille Ball's from I Love Lucy. And he says, Marty, we got to go see that. He says, Lucille was my next door neighbor in Hollywood for a while.
Oh, really?
And she was very nice to me. And she, on the way back there, it was a long store. She says, on the way back there, she says, is the dress green? I said, well, yeah, how would you know that? He says, oh, she always wore green because it was like the green screens later. The black and white showed up better, in the green outfit. And she had that red hair, she dyed her. Well, I says, I know all about that because she was the most famous woman in America when I was a kid. All the ladies, including my mother, dyed their hair red. And then I found out she was a dirty blonde, but she dyed her hair red.
Oh, really?
And at any rate, we went back there and I showed her. When she says the dress is green, that's the dress.
Oh, okay.
And so we put it on the back of the book. But he says, yeah, that's, she was always nice to me. And that's, anyway, that was the story there. And at that, in the back room, I had this, and I had one of Sissy's SpaceX dresses from Coal Miner's Daughter there. And I had a hat of Brando's that looked just like the one he wore in The Godfather. And I asked her, it wasn't. He'd worn it fishing, but he bought it at the same time as they picked up the one he used in the film. I had the secretary say, well, this was Brando's fishing hat. But when we got to that, I just said to her, well, Miss Jones, did you know Brando? He died by then. Well, I did 2 films with him. I felt like an idiot, And at any rate, he's done 2 films with him. And we went on, and I showed her that Jimmy Stewart. And I says, did you know Jimmy Stewart? I asked the same dumb question. He says, well, I did 3 films with him. And they knew all the Hollywood people. When it came to Marilyn, she was in high school, and Jimmy Dane, he was a good kid. He shouldn't have got killed like that, He knew them all. They're the only ones I ever had in that knew all of the Hollywood people. So that was very impressive to me. When they were all done, we were getting ready to leave and going out the doors. Marty turns and says, this has been a lot of fun. They were there about an hour. He says, I'm going to send you some of Shirley's lobby cards from some of our movies. Oh, that'd be nice. I thought, man, I'll never see him again. But a month later, this huge package was stuck through the front door, and it was all these lobby cards and things.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, I gave most of them away. I think I may have one in here somewhere. But at any rate, she had signed them all, and there was a photograph they sent of themselves as security guards. It was a black and white photograph. I framed it up later, but it was too big for this place, so I didn't bring it in. But they're both wearing caps, but if you look close, hers said security and his said insecurity. It was hilarious.
That's funny.
Yeah, they're a cute couple.
I hope you enjoyed our conversation with Brent Ashworth. In our next conversation, we're going to talk more about LDS documents, including a first edition copy of the Book of Mormon.
Then it was used at the School of Prophets in Kirtland.
Oh.
So it was kind of a work copy, So, anyway, but subsequent to that, we've learned a lot more about it.
Do we know who owned it?
Do we know? We've learned that it was Frederick G. Williams' copy.
Oh, okay. The first bishop. Or was he first or second?
Joseph. He was the second counselor in the first president.
Oh, yeah. Oh, I'm thinking of Partridge. That's what I'm thinking of.
Jesse Goss was picked, but he didn't get put in. But they put Frederick G. Williams in his place. And we've since done a lot of research on this. There's some Joseph Smith handwriting in it, we believe, where he wrote a couple of notes on himself. But it's got a lot of writing in it.
Thanks for listening, and I hope you to continue to enjoy Gospel Tangents. Consider becoming a Patreon or go to gospeltangents.com/shop, and you can get a cool tie, a hat, or even a nice mug. You can also get a sweatshirt, so check it out at gospeltangents.com/shop.